Staff Sergeant Cameron D. Carter distinguishes himself by meritorious achievement while participating in sustained aerial flight as a direct support operator, Combined Joint Special Operations Air Component, Afghanistan. In support of Operation Freedom's Sentinel from 27 June 2019 to 23 July 2019. During this period, Sergeant Carter prosecuted 20 missions providing real-time imminent threat warning, situational awareness, and non-traditional intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance to Special Operations Forces executing precision strike, armed reconnaissance, and specialized mobility missions. Sergeant Carter helped shape the battle space through accurate and timely warning of enemy surveillance networks, attack preparations, and intentions. On one mission, despite having a severely degraded system, Sergeant Carter passed critical enemy ambush information to other air assets, which led to a fixed-wing close air support strike against enemy air defense artillery. Overall, Sergeant Carter provided 12 threat calls and was responsible for the elimination of 22 enemy combatants and 18 enemy detained in action. His actions supported partner counterterrorism operations and contributed to the success of our nation's effort to shape conditions for stability and security in Afghanistan. The professional ability and outstanding aerial accomplishments of Sergeant Carter reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Air Force, and this was just the start. Today, I present to you multi-time Air Medal recipient, father, veteran, and man of many hobbies. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Cameron D. Carter. Welcome, big dog.
What's up, baby? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, good. I love the introduction. It was beautiful.
Yeah, you like that?
That was pretty good. Pretty good. You had a certain kind of gravitas to your introduction that I liked.
How many Air Medals do you have? Do you remember?
Oh,
We're talking
man.
to a combat veteran, ladies and gentlemen.
I think 10 or 11.
Oh, that's a lot.
10 or 11. I think the record for our group of people was like 14, I think. 14 or 15.
14? Who was that? Do you remember?
I think it was Bra. I think it was
Oh
Bra.
my God. Were you still in the service during the downfall of Afghanistan?
It's continuously the downfall of Afghanistan. Somehow the graveyard of empires is just continuously falling, but continuously succeeding somehow. I don't know. But if you're referring to the pullout, then yeah, I was one of the second. I was the second to last deployment out to Afghanistan officially. And as people were like falling out of the airplanes and stuff like that, I left a week before that happened.
That was so the Air Medal, just for everyone that's listening, the Air Medal that I read was on your first deployment. That was your first Air Medal ever. So as you described, you have several more after that because you're a
Yeah.
distinguished recipient. That was the deployment you replaced Dobb, right? And then
Yeah.
I came out a little bit later. Or no, we left together, right?
Yeah, we came out together.
Yeah. Dude,
We
I
came out
remember that.
together.
I remember that.
Yeah, because I remember we were flying. We went out with Geronimo, and we kept messing with her because she like kept falling asleep.
Yeah.
And then you guys were in the barracks closest to the center. So I'd come over there and I'd watch y'all run like mad and stuff like that, and chilling there
Yeah.
with y'all. I think it was you, Bake. I forgot his name. I want to say Chandler is his first name. I don't remember.
Yep. Yep.
And then there's like one other dude I think too, and y'all would just be in there chilling. We'd grab the rippets and we'd do like the Bagram sunrises. Yeah, we'd have the rippets and orange juice and we'd be out there chilling in the NA beers. And I'd come in there and hang out with y'all. Yeah, that was the first one. That was super fun.
Yeah, so we'll get into the whole like, pre-deployment and like who you were and stuff like that. But talk to me about the travel, because I have my own opinions on deployment travel and what that's done to my life. But with that being our first trip together, I do want to hear about that.
It's the military, like any other, giant businesses, is super organized in a lot of ways, super unorganized in a lot of others. So like getting set up was hard. It's like you have to show up, hours and hours early, and then you kind of just sit around. And it's just like the rest of the military. It's hurry up and wait. You have to get there early, and you sit around. And I can't remember if it was my first one or second one, but we were one of the ones that shut down the whole drinking before you go in thing. So we were all pretty jazzy, sitting outside, like waiting to go, in the fence. And I don't know if you remember this, but my dad was drinking with us.
Yes, dude, I love this story.
And we were hardcore drinking, and my dad's going shot for shot with us. And then even people, that he didn't know most people. Obviously, he knew the core friends, but all the other people that were deploying would come up because they knew me, and we were doing shots and stuff. And I think it was getting late night, maybe around like 9 p.m., like 2100. And I can't find my dad. I'm like, wonder where he's at. And my mom's like, go check your truck. So I'm looking in the cab, seeing if he's sitting there warming it up. He's in the back seat with his head on a football we were throwing earlier, knocked out, and like dicky shorts and like a polo button up, just laid out, passed on the back of the truck. They can't move him, and they have to drive home. It was like a 30-minute drive back out to Navarre, I think, with him in the back in the bed of the truck because he could not get up. He would not get up. But they ended up doing that later on. I'm not part of that, but we leave him. We go inside the gate eventually, and then people are dispersing, but there's still people pouring alcohol through the fence to us. So you have to put your mouth up to the fence. People are pouring alcohol in. People are hitting vapes through the fence. You see like the little crossfire fence. People are smoking vapes through, and it's like a super high because you're going to do the thing that you've been waiting years to do, and to go help serve and protect America. And then you get in there and you sit, and you're just sitting, and the only like support and only beacon of happiness is the little vending machine in the corner that you can go hit up if you're hungry or you're thirsty. And you just sit there and sit there and sit there, kill a couple hours, and then you finally get on the plane. It's just like peace, just to be able to sit down in your chair. I think I woke up. I don't forgot what country we ended up going to the first time, but I woke up in that country and I was like, "Holy shit! Like this is real." Like the I don't know 6-7 hours of us just sitting there waiting to go, and then us being in another country when you wake up was just like a surreal moment for me. I don't know if it was like that for you.
Yeah, and just just to paint the picture, like for the audience as well. So Cam kind of alluded to it. You show up to, and we don't have to get into like the names of the buildings or anything like that, but like
Yeah.
you get your deployment orders, whether it's a week prior, several weeks, a months prior, anything like that, and you have to go to the centralized location. So either you get dropped off by your family, you get dropped off by a white bus that then takes you out to the aircraft. Yep. And so you go to what some people have called the bird cage, and it is quite literally just a giant building with a large cage around it. It's
Yep.
it's I don't know if it's really meant to keep people in or if it's meant to keep people out. But what happens is you sign in for your deployment, you show them your military ID, and then they have you sit in either the building or you can sit outside in the cage. And so for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people, with this either being their first or 15th deployment, they understand at least that this is the last time you can have any kind of fun in the United States before you get on that aircraft and, like Cam
Yep.
explained, time travel to whatever country that you're going to next. And these are not fast flights either. So a lot of times you have to, stop in a certain location to get gas. The first flight could be 6 hours, it could be 7 hours, and then the follow-on travel is at least 3 days to maybe a week. And so, with us not being capable or allowed to drink in these deployed environments, yes, usually people go out of their way to, yep, have one last piece of fun, and it's a good time. It's a really good time. Yeah, man. When I saw your dad, it was a surreal moment because I was like, oh man, dude, he's got his dad here. I never even thought to like invite my parents to deployments. I was always just like, well, time to deploy. Like I'll see
Yeah.
you guys when I get back, kind of thing. And Yeah, that was really awesome having your dad there. That was really
It
fun.
was wild. It was my whole family there. Like my brother was there, my
Oh
mom,
yeah, I
my
remember
sister,
that.
all of them. Yeah. Then he ends up, thinking he can hang with the boys. I'm pretty sure we wrestled that night too. He probably wrestled a couple of y'all too, just because he's like that. But just having the family support, not everybody does it. A lot of people have like their wife and their kids and stuff, but I had the family come out there, and it's super cool. That being like
Yeah.
the last memory you have being in the States is you being with family and friends before you leave.
So let's talk about your family then, actually. So you have a brother, a sister, mom, dad, your
Yep.
grandma is one of my favorite people in the world. Yeah. So from Fayetteville. And
Yep.
so going from Fayetteville to Afghanistan, I'm assuming that was not really different for you from growing up.
It wasn't too far off. Fayetteville's not a great place. If you've been to Fayetteville, then you know what it is. There's not really much to do. You can sell drugs, join the military, or you can go work at the Goodyear plant. There's not anything else you can do. Those are the three. I mean, you go to college, but who's doing that? Um, so those are the options. And then going from Fayetteville and joining the military was a big culture shock, seeing a lot of different things. But being able to go to Afghanistan and be in some uncomfortable areas, it kind of prepares you for that because Fayetteville's not the best place around. So it wasn't the biggest transition was going from Fayetteville to the military. Getting to Afghanistan was kind of fun. Like you feel like you're not always on edge, but you have to be aware of your surroundings, and it's kind of a reminder of Fayetteville for sure.
That's funny. What was your mindset like growing up in Fayetteville? So like obviously I'm from Detroit, but like we also,
Hmm.
even still being like two inner city like guys, everyone's gonna always say that their inner city was tougher and harder and cooler
Yeah,
than everybody else's inner city. But yeah, like just as far as your experience, like what was your mindset prior to joining the military as a Fayetteville native, I guess?
yeah, yeah. So Fayetteville, I don't know if I would call it an inner city technically. It would be a ghost town if it wasn't for Fort Bragg again. From what I hear, it's now Fort Bragg again.
Oh,
I
they
was gonna
changed the
steal a
name?
sign. Yeah, they're trying to make it go back to Fort Bragg. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, I want to go back and steal a sign once they make it Fort Bragg again because that was like
Fort
the
Liberty
OG.
just wasn't hitting.
It was dumb. I wasn't a big fan of it, but um, yeah, Fort Bragg made Fayetteville. If it wasn't for that, it would be a ghost town. So it was more like it was hood, but it was like country. I don't know about inner city. That's probably more of like
Mm.
Charlotte and like Winston Salem kind of stuff. Fayetteville wasn't too big, but it was had a couple nice areas, but for the most part, it was just ghetto. It wasn't like a great area. I grew up, I had good family, good parents, lived in some, nice houses and went to some decent schools. But there was, if you were going to have some fun, it was going to be trouble. Like we had one Crown Coliseum where you could go watch, I think it was the Fire Ants play, maybe like a local hockey team. But other than that, you were either hanging at the mall trying to steal something from PacSun or Claire's, or you were out, partying with friends doing stuff you weren't supposed to. So there wasn't a whole lot to do in Fayetteville, and my whole goal was to figure out how to get out and just not come back. But it took me quite some time and quite a lot of jobs to get to that point. I always like to bounce around and do different things. And then I fell into it. I don't even remember what I was doing there. You know what? I was selling um, uh, security systems with ADT. I was selling ADT security systems going door to door. And I was like, man, this is crazy. We're just riding around in a little, pack Sprinter van, smoking black and milds as soon as we hop out, trying to sell security systems, to people who were trying to prevent their houses from being broken into from people who looked like we did. So it didn't really make much sense. And then I was riding around one time and I was like, let me just go see if I can get this job. So I ended up going in, and then I feel like I interviewed pretty well. And they were like, all right, yeah, we'll hire you. So I ended up working at Volkswagen, BMW out there in Fayetteville, trying to sell cars. Didn't know how to drive a stick. So when I was trying to do test drives with people, I would just give them the keys and just hop in the passenger seat because I didn't know how to do it. At that point, I had worked in everywhere in Fayetteville, and I went and bought some super cheap suits. I had like, and this was back when like you weren't doing like fitted suits. Like I was in a 3-piece suit. I was like baggy, long slacks. I looked like if you don't have a lawyer would be appointed to you. That's what I looked like, and I was out there selling cars.
This would be perfect, like transition to like, some of those video podcasts that just like show photos and stuff like that as like as people tell stories and stuff.
Yeah, I had hair back then too, so I was out there stunning. I looked like a Puerto Rican because I had the beard lined up. I had the chin strap out there. Oh yeah, yeah.
Go ahead and show the people who don't know you what you got rocking under the hood.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I used to have that V8. I used to have that V8 6.7 liter. Now I got that four banger Honda Accord. God knew I was too handsome and too charismatic. So if he gave me the hair, who knows? I probably would have taken over the world. The Bachelor each season would just be me. It'd just be me trying to pull hose each week, and they would know what it was, but they couldn't stop it.
That shit's funny. And then, okay, so as we're like walking through, the pre-military timeline and stuff like that, you went
Mm.
from selling anything you could get your hands on, it sounds like, to one day you just woke up and you're like, I'm trying to join the military. I want to learn a new language. I want to go help people kick doors down, do the thing, be distinguished.
I was actually selling life insurance at that point.
How old were you?
22, 20, 23, 24, trying to tell people in their 50s, like, you need life insurance. This is what your life's about. And I didn't know anything. So I didn't believe in it. And I was like, I'm just done with this. Like I need something. I need a catalyst. I need something to let me know. And then my grandma had passed away and she had helped, raise me. She was there from day one. I feel like, she was wiping my ass and I was like 12 or something crazy, just kidding. Lovely lady, wonderful lady. But she had passed away, and I was like, damn, like how I got like all she knew me as was just like not a fuck up, but I wasn't doing nothing with my life. All the love and support she gave me, money, a place to stay, everything, and I had nothing to show for that. So whenever she passed, I was like, I mean, afterlife spirituality, whatever. I don't know if you believe in that, but if she is looking down, like she's gonna look down and see me doing the same shit. Like she had no impact on my life, so I had to do something different. So I knew there's nothing in Fayetteville, and I was like, what can I do that's different? I always told myself I would never join the military because it was a cop out. But then it got to the point that I needed to do something. I needed to get out. And what could I do? So I went down to the recruiter, and I'm to the Army recruiter first. And then I wanted to do 18 X-ray. Pretty sure is what it is when you come in and you go straight. And once you do your PT stuff, you go straight to, basically like selection and try to do special forces and all that. So I wanted to do that. I took the ASVAB and they were like, dude, you're hella smart. You sure you want to do this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I want to. And he was like, all right, well, we can send you in a year and a half. And I was like, nah, fuck that. I don't want to do that. And he's like, well, go try the Air Force. So I tried the Air Force and I wanted to go be a PJ. I wanted to be a pararescue jumper. And they're like, all right, well, we'll send you through. And then I ended up doing like some sort of eye exam or something, and then they said that my depth perception was way off, and then I was like partly colorblind or something, which wasn't true. So I was like, all right, well, I mean, I can't do that. What can I do? And they're like, well, you can be a crypto linguist. And I was like, oh, that's dope. He's like, yeah, dude, you're gonna fucking fly on planes, hop out, go kick doors, and translate down there for people. And I was like, super cool. Sign me up. I'll do that. Get through the whole process. And find out that's not what I'm doing at all. But it was still a cool job. I didn't get to hop out of planes. I didn't get to do any of that crazy stuff. I did get to translate, but I didn't realize I was going to have to go through like 3-4 years of training before I got to do anything. But it was still a great decision. The best decision I made in my life was to do that.
That was cool. Yeah, so as far as training goes, because like you
Mm-hmm.
said, training takes a long time. Like going from, learning the language to learning how to fly to doing all this other stuff. That was about what 2.5 years in total, or was it closer to 3 years before you were like, I'm finally done with training?
So it's basically around 2 years of just like language and other like basic technology training, and then you get to your actual like squadron, and then you have roughly a yearish doing like flight training stuff, and then you usually get to the your actual unit, and you have you know it could be 2 months to a year before you actually spin up to deploy. So I think mine was I was already a staff sergeant before I deployed, so I think it was 2019 when I deployed, so it was 4 years for me. So I did training for 4 years before I was able to deploy. But then I did 3 deployments in 2 years.
Knowing that training is that long, because like you knew that going into it, right? Like there was no secret.
No,
Oh no,
no.
what? Okay,
So
go
when I
ahead.
got when I went to the recruiter, recruiters don't know what the job that I did is. I was the first ever linguist they've ever recruited. Nobody had taken the tests well. And once you take, you do the ASVAB first, right? Which is the armed armed services vocational aptitude battery, I think. And then after that, or something like that. And then after, if you do well off of that, you can go do the DLAB, which is the defense language aptitude battery, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong about ASVAB. But once you do the DLAB, then they're like, all right, if you pass that, it's basically a test with like patterns and numbers and random stuff. And if you can figure that out, you do well. And once you do that, they're like, all right, you'll be a linguist. Nobody had ever passed the test where I came from. So they didn't know what it was. They kind of just made up what I was supposed to be doing and kind of lied to me about what was actually going to happen. So I had no idea how long it was going to take for training. Like you go through, you finish basic and you basically sit around in a room together and you wait to hear what language you get because you don't even know what language you get until you finish like basic. So you sit around and then once you get your language, you're like, all right, I don't even know. So we found out using like a language code because they just give you a language code. You're not supposed to know what you're actually doing, but we found out early and then kind of like went and looked up what it was supposed to be like and found out kind of how long it took to learn it. So I had an idea. I thought I'd be at my squadron in a year. So I was like, all right, cool, no problem. And then 3 years later, I was still like waiting to go do the job. So they don't tell you what you're actually going to do. You have no actual clue.
Oh, I do want to break into this because you talking about training made me think about this. So Cam hit the nail on the head. You joined basic military training. At the time, I believe it was 7.5 weeks, and then we had the week on the back end. Yep, you know exactly what I'm about to explain.
Yes.
So you have a week on the back end, and the whole point of the week, right, is because
Oh God.
the Air Force takes you away from civilization basically for 7.5 weeks, and some people cannot adapt to that. Like you go from having all these things, your phone, your girlfriend, video games, everything, and then what was happening is at the end of BMT, they were putting you on another white bus and they were sending you back into the real world, right? And so people were getting DUIs, people were they were acting fools. And so the Air Force thought it would be a phenomenal idea to add a week called Airman's Week at the back end, which slowly transitioned you back into freedom, is what it felt like. So I don't remember meeting Cam in BMT, but I distinctly remember meeting him in Airman's Week. So they take you away from the BMT area and they send you on a completely other side of base. And Lackland, where it's at massive base, right? So I distinctly remember meeting him at Airman's Week, and I met all of our other group of friends that we're still extremely close with now, and I was like, wow, this guy's cool. He's very charismatic. We chatted a few times, and I'm going to tee the story up from your perspective. But all I remember at the end of the week was Cam just disappeared within 48 hours of graduating Airman's Week, and we're about to go off to our individual schools. And I look around and I'm like, yeah, where's Cam at? And one of my buddies at the time was like, I don't know, I haven't seen him all day. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess we'll see him tomorrow before we all get on the bus and head our separate ways. I don't see Cam for another 2.5 years. And he shows up, he shows up at my base. And I'm like already like getting through training. We do separate jobs, but I'm getting through some of the latter half of the aircrew training. And he just walks into this building and I look at him and I'm like, dude, what? And he's like, yo, what's up, dog? And I was like, bro, where the fuck have you been? So, Cam, please,
Yeah.
your perspective of that story and what happened.
All right. All right. So some extra background, not to go too far back, but going through BMT, they told us that we couldn't buy like ice cream or anything from the BX. And I was like, fuck that, I'm buying ice cream. And once I bought ice cream, bunch of other people bought ice cream. And then somebody ended up like snitching on us and stuff like that. So leaving BMT, I was already in trouble. Like my uh, MTLs, like were already mad at me for how I handled things. My drill instructors, basically. So going out of it, I was like, okay, all right, I got to keep my nose clean. I can't get in trouble anymore because they already told everybody about me in Airman's Week. So you go to Airman's Week, and then I was one of the first people there because I was. Some people moved across the base, but I was right across the street from where it was. So I was one of the first ones there, and they were like, "All right, do you want to do any kind of details?" And I was like, "I'll be dorm chief." And they were like, "You sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be dorm chief," because I guess they didn't hear about me, so they were like, "All right, you can be dorm chief," which is dope. So that's how I met everybody because I was the dorm chief for a lot of us guys. So I'm making sure everything goes smooth for the Airman's Week. I think it's probably like the 6th day, maybe, and we leave on the 7th day. And then there's a couple girls that are like, "Yo, we're going to the movies," and you had to have a battle buddy with you, or what was it called? An airman? You had to have an airman something.
A wingman.
A wingman.
Yeah,
There you go. You had to have a wingman in order to go anywhere. You couldn't go because technically you had to wear these blue reflective belts that identified you as like not a human yet, not a person. And you had to see two of those reflective belts together. So I was running with this one guy, the same gender, yes. So there's this one guy, and nobody liked him, and I was like, all right, everybody's giving him a hard time. Like, let me give him a chance. Like, I'll be his wingman, and we'll go out and hang out together. I'll bring him out to the mall. We'll bring him around some girls, like be able to talk and have some fun. So I ended up talking to these girls, like, we're going to the movies tonight. You should come, Carter. And I was like, oh, bet, yeah, we can do that. I'll pull up on the movies. So I tell the dude, and he was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go back to the room. And I was like, look, there's two of us, there's four of them. Let's go to the movies, bro. And he was like, no, I don't want to go. And I was like, all right, I'm going to the movies. So go to the BX and then find a wingman from there, because you could go in threes too. If you wanted, you could go in threes. So I was like, go get a wingman or two, and then go back to, the barracks or whatever. And then I'll meet you later on. And he's like, okay. I took my blue belt, my reflective belt under so nobody can see it. And it starts raining. And I just start booking it towards the movie theater. And then we have a warning called lightning within 5. So lightning within 5 was going off, and most people get inside. I'm just booking it, trying to get this movie theater. Get to the movie theater, sit down, watch the movie. I'm completely soaking wet in the movie theater. Terrible. It was a dumb movie. I don't remember what it was. But as I'm coming back, say goodbye to the girls, I get back. I try to like sneak in, and all the MTLs are waiting for me. There's like an E6 there, there's like an E7. First shirt's there, and they were like, Airman Carter, where you been? I was like, I got lost. And it was lightning within 5. I was scared. I didn't know where to go, so I just held down in like a building, and I didn't know. They're like, Airman Carter, we know you went to the movies. Your wingman told me that you went. As soon as you left, he went to the BX and called us and reported you. And I was like, no way. No way. My altruism of trying to help this guy, be a friend and come and hang out with him and try to do the movies just screwed me. So they were like, Airman Carter, you already made it through. We like you enough. You're funny, you're charismatic, but we're gonna recycle you. And I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna recycle you. You have to do this. You have to do Airman's Week again because you're not ready.
Because you have learned nothing.
I learned nothing. Learned nothing. I still wasn't an airman. I didn't even make it the week. So as everybody's like leaving out, they're giving hugs and goodbyes and shit. I'm just sitting up there, sitting down, reading the Airman's Handbook, just like, what am I going to do? How do I tell all these people that, I basically got recycled. I got rolled back for being a douchebag and breaking the rules. And everybody leaves, dude. And it's just me. And I do another week the next week. And they're making me do all the same kumbaya, talk about your feelings and your life before the Air Force. And I'm just sitting there and like, Airman Carter, you need to participate if you want to graduate this week. So I do the bare minimum and graduate. And ended up showing up to like air crew training, maybe like a week and a half behind because I got put in med hold for some reason too. And I ended up showing up, do some sort of finesse. I charmed somebody and they put me in the class that everybody else who left before me the week before was in. So I ended up hopping back in and not missing anything.
Oh my God. Yeah, man, that was a great experience because we kept in touch on Facebook, I believe. Or at least I was friends with. We had a lot of mutual friends, right? And so
Yeah, it was Ellis.
Yeah, Ellis. I don't think I really knew Dob that much at the time, but I just remember keeping in touch with like a bunch of people and just waiting to see what platforms we were gonna get. And then I got to
Yep.
Hurlburt, and I was like, bro, this is a gold mine. I was like, it is beautiful here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we live on the beach. I was like, training is like pretty tough, but who cares? Like every time you take off,
Yeah.
you get to see, you know, girls,
The
surfers.
bay,
Like,
the ocean.
yeah, you see everything. And I was like, bro, you guys have to do as if we had any choice. I was like, you guys have to do whatever you need to get here. And everybody's like, oh
Yep.
man, like Driggers is at Hurlburt. Like, that's so cool. And then, 3 weeks left of my training, like, all of you guys show up. It was like 5 or 6 of you guys show up. A 2 year school.
2 year school. Yeah.
And
Of
you were
like
just,
grinding every day. Like I'm sure Bellotti can tell you more about DLI, but it was grueling.
dude,
Yeah,
that's funny. That's
it
funny.
was grueling.
Always been a hustler, always
Hmm.
been charismatic. I want to know what. So, in my opinion, those are two extremely important skills, right? And
Hmm.
so, the way I see it is one, you have the ability to read situations and emotions in ways that I'm willing to bet most people do not have the ability to do, right? And that
Hmm.
isn't even getting into the charismatic point of view. That's
Yep.
specifically talking about the ability to hustle, right? And I think a lot
Yep.
of people will look at that with like a negative connotation because they're like, oh, this guy's trying to sell me something, right? To give,
Yeah.
tribute to your past years, right? But in my opinion, that's actually a good skill to have to be able to communicate where other people are at, right? Now you can use a skill
Yeah.
like that for evil, you can use it for good, and you can use it in other various ways that I feel like tip the morality scale. But
Hmm.
so far through the stories that we've talked about, you've used it in a way that benefits you, but also in a way that has benefited the people around you, which I think is
Yeah.
a very good thing, right?
Sometimes it's like that. I mean, I think you kind of have to have a good balance. Like even to give an explanation for hustling or an example, like if we're trying to get into a club or something and somebody's giving us some trouble, I can go, talk a lingo with the bouncer or whoever and be like, come on, man, like, we're not trying to be like that. Spend $20 or whatever. It's not always about like hustling, selling drugs or trying to, pitch somebody or screw somebody out of money. It's negotiation, empathy, charisma, understanding. It's a bunch that goes into it. It's making things happen in situations where most people would turn and run.
It sounds like you've always had that mentality, but
Mm-hmm.
would you say the military has kind of like honed that, or that's just something that you've developed over time?
That's something that's something that I developed. Like my dad he was a hard ass. He was army and always yes sir, no sir, push ups and this and that. I'd ask to have friends over and I'd have to do push ups. They'd have to work out. I'd have to tell them the largest land mammal. It was always a negotiation. It was always like if I wanted something, it wasn't free. I needed to find something that he wanted me to do or that I could do, proactively. It was always quid pro quo. What can I
Yep.
do to get this? You know what I mean? Or
Yep.
what can I do for you do this for me? So that just kind of developed the military. It stifles that. It stifles that. I like the military. It was the best decision, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, but it stifles a lot of creativity. Kind of for good reason. You can't have 1,000 people marching in unison going to complete the same mission without uniformity, without putting everybody into a box. That's how you make that happen. But they kind of curtailed your ability to be an individual and have the freedom you want to act the way you want to act sometimes. But um, it did allow some moments for you to kind of grow and for you to kind of use that when need be. But for the most part, it showed me how to use it. We'll put it like that. I learned, what hustling was. The military taught me kind of how to use it, when to use it.
You get through training, you go on your first
Mm-hmm.
deployment. I'm there. You got the boys. Dobbs there.
Yep.
Great old time. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about Geronimo.
Yep.
Awesome leader. a great friend of both of ours. When did you start to realize like this experience being in another country like this? Because you hadn't been outside of the country at that point, right?
I'd barely been outside of Fayetteville, brother. I'd been to a family reunion in Atlanta, Georgia, and maybe Orlando one time. I had never been outside of Fayetteville, brother.
Yeah, so for a lot of people, not necessarily people listening to the podcast right now, but years from now, people will find this episode and they'll be like, I've never been outside of my local area. So
Yep.
can you kind of talk through like the emotions and like the experience that you have doing something like that? I didn't know that.
It's
I
just
didn't know
like,
that you hadn't been outside
dude,
of Fayetteville.
never been outside of it. I mean, I've done like little small trips and stuff
Of
like
course,
that,
yeah.
but like been to California, been to Texas. No, I've never been to any of those places. Like, let alone outside of like contiguous United States. Like getting to be able to do that and like flying on a plane. I maybe flown on a plane once or twice before going to Florida or something maybe, but like landing in a foreign country was just it was mind blowing, and it just kind of expanded my view of like the world. Like all I knew was like Fayetteville and the small little area that I was from and the power plant, my small little school. And then you fly over an ocean that's unfathomably big. It's huge. And you get to a place where the people kind of look like you, but they talk different, they walk different, they act different. It's like surreal. Like it's hard to explain. It's not like alien. They're not alien, but they're so different from everything that you can comprehend that it made me think like, what else in my life was I so small minded about? What else did I not understand? Like it just kind of threw me for a loop of how much I didn't know.
And to give some additional perspective on that one too, because I'm glad that you brought up how alienating that can feel. We're talking about like Cam is not discussing getting on a plane and going to the UK. Like we're not going to
Yeah,
Scotland. We're not going anywhere where the local populace can also communicate with you in your native language, right?
yeah,
We're
yeah,
talking about going to Afghanistan for the sake of this podcast, right?
yeah,
Where sure they're not communists and like their lifestyle in that way is not 180 degrees from what we understand today, but these
yeah.
people have values that some people can't even understand, even if it was sitting right in front of them.
Bro, like to expand on that, I met people who had never seen a TV. They don't even know what a television is. They don't know what like electricity is. They don't have anything wired in their house. Like when the sun goes down, that's night time. There's no TV. There's no let me go listen to Spotify rain sounds to go to bed. There's none of that. There's nothing out. They don't even have like plumbing. They dig troughs. There's nothing out. When you meet somebody like that, it's like you truly start to appreciate all that you've had, but then you realize the disparity in the lifestyles that people live in, kind of like the worlds that we live in. It was super eye opening. Even though I was young and immature, just kind of seeing that made me realize, Fayetteville's not all that bad. The U.S. isn't all that bad. Like my life's not all that bad. It puts a lot of things in perspective.
Yeah, 100%. I distinctly remember coming back from, I think it was my third deployment, and I don't drink coffee like people have seen me drink energy drinks like throughout the episodes or whatever. Um, and I made a cup of coffee. It was like 9 a.m. I had come back from deployment probably within the last 48 hours. I made a
Yeah,
cup of coffee just because it was in my house, and I sat on my porch and I watched the sunrise and I drank that cup of coffee, and I was so grateful for I hadn't done anything yet. Like hadn't
yeah,
picked up my phone like you just said, like no technology, nothing. I picked up uh, the coffee and I just started drinking it, and I was like, wow, this is disgusting. But then on top of that, I was like, I'm so grateful to have choice, like the fact that
yeah,
I threw it out in my yard and I was like, tried it, didn't like it, at least
yeah,
gave it a chance. And I had the opportunity to go get in my car and go somewhere else to get something else that I
yeah,
wanted. And
yeah,
I think there's something to be said because for some people, they deploy and they fear death, right? And I think there's
mm,
a piece of at least me where that wasn't on my mind. It was a lot of the simple stuff, kind of to your point of like, man, I miss being able to go to the club, like it's 9 p.m. in local time. And like, I got my friends
Red
here.
door.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I wish, we were back home in the States, just like hanging out with the boys, like out doing there. And yeah, it's, I'm kind of going on a riff, but it's just
Yeah,
it's an experience. Yeah.
it truly is. To be able to be living the lives that we have is unbelievable. And then to come back, I know it's always hard. Like you said, the fear of like dying, I feel like is always there. But I feel like we were so young. You were younger than I was, but to be so young and to be so, for lack of a better word, indoctrinated
Yeah.
into believing that we were doing the right thing, where the U.S. is, has the prowess, or the untouchable force. Like you didn't really think about actually dying. Like it didn't really cross my mind like that. Because like how are they gonna hit? How are they gonna blow up the U? Like I'm the U.S. How are they gonna blow up that? How are they gonna kill me? Even when we get like IDF'd, like it was just like it's not gonna hit me. I don't know what they were putting, what invulnerability serum they were putting in the DFAC food, but it was working because I wasn't really fearing that. My biggest fear was something happening on the way home.
Yeah. Yep.
That would be it. Something happening on the way home. But once you fly over that water and you land, it's just like it's an unbelievable feeling.
Yeah. You get off the flight again after another week of training, or excuse me, after a week of
Transit.
travel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting back on more white buses. Those 19th. I need to
Oh.
buy one of those buses and just like do a trip. Get like the
Oh.
little.
Speaking of that, do you remember when I came back and the colonel I had a beard when I came back? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Because they asked you about it, didn't they? They asked you, like,
Yeah.
this guy. I came back and I had a full beard, like bigger than this. I had a full beard, and then he like looked at me and shook my hand. I shook his hand. I looked at him and I shook his hand. I smiled and I was like, "Thanks for being here, sir. It's a pleasure to be back and serving the country." And he like looked at me and then just kept on going down the line. And I remember you told me later on that somebody that the I think it was a lieutenant colonel or a colonel asked you, like, "Hey, do you like what's up with this guy? Why does he have a beard?"
Yeah. So Cam, like he explained, he used to have, curly hair. Um, and I won't say whose tradition, but when you go down range, you do some stuff. There's a
Yeah,
tradition, you shave your hair, right? And Cam, I remember he came to me and was just like, "Hey, boys, I'm, they're cutting my hair off," and I was like, "Oh, dude, that, such an honor, like, that's awesome."
yeah.
And then you looked at me and you're like, "Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna grow back after they shave it, bro."
I don't think it's coming back. I
You're
don't
like,
think
"I
it's
think
coming.
this
I
might
talked
be
to my
it."
barber too. When I came back, I talked to my barber, and then like my lineup went from like right here because I had nice hair, and then it started going here, and my lineup kept getting back here, and my forehead kept getting longer. I was like, Ash, what's up with my line, brother? He was like, time to let it go, Cam. Time to let it go. So I just started shaving my head from there.
But yeah,
After that first appointment.
he comes back and like his hair's looking straggly, like, and again, we just got done doing a week of travel. Like, it's not, we're not
Yeah,
staying in Hilton, like we're not
yeah,
staying at Marriott's. Like, we're sleeping on cots. You're showering when you can, and it is 120 degrees in every country
yeah.
between here and in Bagram, right? Afghanistan.
You have like one book bag with
Yes. Yep.
a change of clothes or two, some Crocs and some boots. Like
Exactly.
that's it, and you live out of that for a week.
And Cam looks disheveled as all of us did, right?
I look like a vagrant.
And most of us hadn't shaved because, like, sure, you could shave in one of the connexes, like with the water there, but like
Mm,
the risk is not worth it, And so, um, maintaining certain levels of military discipline in order,
mm,
right? He didn't look as wild as this guy had explained. However,
yeah,
I understand from his perspective, being in the States for the last 4 months, having access to all these things,
yeah,
he's like, why doesn't that guy look like me right now? And so Cam gets off the bus, not with a beard like how he has right now, but his hair looked a mess. His uniform looked a mess. All of us looked like a mess. We smelled terrible. And he
Yep.
shakes this guy's hand, and I distinctly remember this guy looking at Cam, looking at me, and like, I have a shaving waiver, like I'm a black guy with a
So
shaving
do
waiver.
I.
Yeah, well, yeah,
So
I
did
remember
I.
that you had a shaving waiver, and at the time, very few white guys had shaving waivers. And
Yeah.
so this dude looks at Cam, he looks at me, and all he sees is like, well, that guy hasn't shaved. Well, that guy hasn't shaved. Well, that guy's black, so like I'm sure he's
Yeah.
fine. And then he looked back at
Yeah.
Cam and was just like, what the fuck, and so we go our separate ways, and I get a phone call from my commander, and he was just like, yo, clean your boy up, dude. And I was like, got it.
I remember that. I remember that. That was funny.
Oh man, dude, that was a good time. Okay,
It was.
that was a good time. I may have asked this in the beginning of the podcast, but how many
Mhm.
total deployments did you go on?
I did three. I
3.
did three
Okay.
in 2 years. Yep. So pretty much back to back. Usually you have a 1 to 2 rest period. So if you go deploy for 1 month, you need to rest for 2 months, and then if you go for two, you need to rest for four. Et cetera, respectively.
Yeah, and each deployment for you, uh, regardless of how long it takes to get to and from country, but each deployment was generally around 100 days, I think, during that time.
100 to 120.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you went on 3 deployments, and then if I remember correctly, that just like gave you an itch. You were like, because I remember every time I talked to you after, I think it was the second deployment, because that's when I believe after this maybe third deployment of yours, that's when I went to the weapons school. I stopped deploying, and I
Hmm.
started traveling for work a lot. And then I was just
Yep.
like, yo, what are you up to? And you're like, oh man, you were like, I'm trying to go to Spain, bro. Like I'm trying to play golf in Ireland and like all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
what do you think gave you that itch to travel? Because you've hit almost all 50 states as well, too, right?
I think I'm at, let me see, I haven't hit, so I've hit most of them, but I consider visiting. If you stay the night, you spend a day there, eat the food, you go shopping, you hit, meet the local people out there. I haven't hit Vermont. I haven't hit um, Arkansas. No, Vermont, Oklahoma, Kentucky. I think that's it. So I think I've done 47 out of the 50.
I didn't know you haven't been to Oklahoma. I'm definitely gonna have you pull up when I get up there.
That's, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm down to go to Oklahoma. I'd want to hit. I'd want to hit um, Brandon while I'm there. I don't know how to brain fry. I want to hit or Bilotti. I'm sorry, Brandon moved, but I want to hit Bilotti while I'm there too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'd love
Yeah,
to do that. And hitting most of them, I think I got the itch. Like I never really being in Fayetteville. Like you don't really see much outside of that. I didn't really do much outside of that. My parents didn't travel a whole lot. Nothing against them, but that's just not who they were. They were raised in a family. So once I kind of like got in the military, I lived in a bunch of different states in the military, and kind of got me the itch a little bit. But then when you fly overseas and you see water, different colors you've never seen before, you see landmarks that you've never seen before, you see trees, and like just it's a whole different world that I had never seen before. And I was like, what else am I missing? What else can I see? What other food can I try? What other drinks can I try? Like, how many dudes can we fit on this moped riding in this random country? Like, I want to go see what that's like. You know what I mean? It created a hunger that I can't satiate.
what was that trip that you went on? I think it was 2 years ago that you just went by yourself and like you stayed in a
A
hostel
lot.
or something like that.
Oh yeah. So a little braggadocious here. For my birthday a couple of years ago, I went to Hawaii. I hit all the islands. I lived in a van in one of the islands. I think it was Maui. I just lived in a van and just rode around and lived in a van and surfed. And then 6 months later, I went to Alaska solo and went like dog sledding. Went and chased the northern lights. I did a bunch of that stuff. And then the year after that, for my birthday, I went to Europe. I booked a trip and I went and hit. Where did I go? I hit England. I hit Germany. I hit Austria. I hit Czech Republic. I hit France. hit Amsterdam. I did like 6 or 7 countries just solo out there.
And this was by himself, just to like reiterate that point to the audience.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I had a really good time.
You good? We keep losing him.
Yes, sir.
Okay. For the sake, I hope your electricity is going to be okay.
Dude, I don't know what it is, honestly.
For the sake of the upload, I'll only ask 3 more questions, and then we can like move on. And
yeah.
I don't know when you cut out of the last one, but
mm-hmm.
I'll just upload, as if I was talking to you anyway. No one will know any different.
Yeah.
But
you were getting ready to ask a question about like stepping out of the comfort zone. You were like working up to it. You were about to mention it.
Yeah, thank you. So the question that I initially asked, in my opinion, was poor. But what I will say is, as far as the theme of the episode, stepping outside of the comfort zone stuff, from teaching at the weapons school, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get people to step outside of their comfort zone, a lot of that had to do with breaking limiting beliefs and teaching individual skills that really revolved around like accepting that you're not going to be good at whatever you're doing. Like there's no reason why if I were to step on the mat with a jiu-jitsu black belt or even a white belt, right? Because that's very relevant for me. Like stepping on the mat with a white belt who has a year more experience than me, like I should not expect to defeat him, regardless of what my wrestling background is, regardless of the tournament rules and all this other stuff. Like that individual knows more about the battlefield that we're both about to get on than I do. And so a lot of people will come to me and be like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe like you stepped outside of your comfort zone to be able to do these things. But for me, I was like, this is my comfort zone. Like I know that I'm not going to do well, and that's okay. Like this dude's about to put me in a headlock. He's about to pummel me into the ground. My friends are going to watch it. People on YouTube are going to watch it. And it's going to be funny, right?
Yeah.
So for you, like, what advice would you give to the listeners as far as, like, I would say you were someone who has been able to step outside of their comfort zone infinitely more than I have. And that's just you're older, you're more experienced in a lot of ways, like, in those environments. Yeah, him and I have had significant conversations
arguments
about that.
arguments.
Yeah. But again, like taking a slice of humble pie, right? Like there are things that you have done 30 more times than I have, right? And so I cannot and should not expect to be better at you than those things until I put the effort into it. Now, when it comes to that kind of stuff, like
I think what you're getting at, what my answer was going to be to your question is like, first, do you want to be better? If you want to be better, then you'll figure out ways to do that. Because like, for me, I did stand-up comedy. I just went up there and I did, like it's like 7 minutes stand-up comedy. And I was just like, I was talking about it. And I think first and foremost, you got to have the want to do something different, to be better. If you don't want to be better, you're not ever going to try to do anything different. You're cool with status quo. So step one, if you want to be better, step two, you have to get people around you. So I wasn't going to do stand-up comedy. I had a friend that was like, do it, man. Like, you're funny. Like, just go do it. What are you going to lose by doing it? Like, you obviously handle embarrassment well. You're a goofball. Why not go try it? What's stopping you? So, have that drive to want to do it, and then have people that support you. And then from there, step out and do something. If you don't have the drive or the want to be any better, there's no point in talking about comfort zones, because you don't know anything besides that. That is what it is. You're comfortable. You're not trying to get outside of it. There is no other zone for you. There is no comfort zone. You have one zone. That's it. You don't need to title it, identify it. You're not going anywhere. But if you want to be better, then you start with a goal, get a support system, and go try it. Like that's how I've done things. I identify something I want to do, and then I may drag my feet on it a little bit, maybe a year or two, or sometimes 3 years. Who knows how long? But I have the desire to want to be better, not just for myself, but for others. I have 2 younger siblings that I want to continue to look up to me. I have parents that I want to be proud of me. I have friends that I want to come to me when they have issues and be able to speak to it. I want to be a better person for me first and foremost, and also for them. So that my drive to be better is what pushes me to go do those things, to get outside of my comfort zone. Because you're not going to grow outside of that. You know what I mean? You're not going to learn anything. You have no way to progress.
I thought it was a phenomenal answer.
Yeah.
We can thank you. Ending this off with the final question that I was alluding to earlier. What's been on your mind recently, bro?
What's been on my mind recently?
When I ask you that question, what's the first thing that pops in your head that you also want other people to hear?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. How to navigate my life for generational wealth. Like, it's cool to have money now. It's cool to be, well off or rich or wealthy, whatever you want to call it. But having a conversation with my dad the other day, he started talking about how he wishes that he had the facilities and the money to be able to just give all of us a house that we could just run and Airbnb out or whatever like that. And then I think, like, my kids are, 3 and 2.5. What should I be doing right now? So by the time they're, 18, 19, I can have instilled in them, you don't work for anybody else. You work for yourself. You can people work for you, but you work for yourself. And how can I ingrain that in myself and in my kids to where in the next 10 years I can be retired hanging out with them, coaching their games, and not have to worry about money or anything like that, or the next job? How do I instill that? So that's my main thought right now, is that what can I be doing in the meantime to facilitate that for my kids and for my family?
Can you talk about, I know I said that was going to be the last question, but I think that's really powerful. Can you speak to how important your why is when it comes to goal setting?
I mean, the why is the whole purpose of it. Like, it's without, before having kids, my why was like just because I wanted it. But my why now is more for family. And as people grow older, they'll start to see that it's not just you that you're doing things for. You do things for yourself, but eventually it becomes bigger than that. It becomes your family and the love that you have for them, that you want to do things. And that's become my why. And if your why isn't your family yet, it will be. It will become your why. And if that's not a strong enough why, then you need to reevaluate. That's Once your family is your why, there should be no question. There is no questioning that. It becomes who you are and what you do and what you aim to achieve.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Cameron D. Carter, Air Medal recipient.
Reciprocate.
We'll do that. Yes, reciprocal math. And with that,